complex in reality. But basically, I claim this is the only account that I can imagine. Do you know that, if you know a little bit of the history of European thought, around the time of Hegel, it was popular to claim that, to assert the notion of so-called European Trinity, the idea being that Europe as a spiritual entity is structured around three poles. Each of them stands for a certain nation, for a certain political attitude or attitude towards life, and for a certain level of social life. Germans are politically conservative. The level of life is poetry, thinking, contemplation. French, politics, level of life, domain of life, politically leftist, revolutionary. English, economy as a sphere of life, and moderate liberalism as... then it did strike me, but that's it. The French approach this radical politics. It falls in, liquidated, disappear. It's like guillotine, no? Like it should disappear. Anglo-Saxon, pragmatic. Let it flow there. We will solve the problem. Germans, of course, poetry and contemplation. You contemplate, you look at... Now, crazy as this may sound, but believe me or not, in a way it is true. Let us say, that's my point, serious point that I want to make. Are you aware how it's easy to say, oh, no ideology and so on. My God, you go to the toilet and you sit on ideology, how should I put it? That is to say, even such the lowest of the lowest vulgar everyday object cannot be accounted for in direct utilitarian terms. It is structured like this because it's the most appropriate, but embodies certain very fundamental attitudes towards what is one of the big problems of life. What to do with this embarrassing excrement that comes out of our body. And this is not a secondary point. Every good anthropologist will tell you that one of the signs that you are dealing with humans, no longer with apes or animals, is that you have this embarrassment what to do with shit, basically. No? How to, it must disappear. It's the whole problem of, I mean, we are immediately in the deepest metaphysics. I'm quite serious, which is what we as humans, I claim that disgust is a deeply human emotion. And what is disgust? Disgust is not necessarily immediately characterized by its object. It has to do something with the disturbed frontier between inside and outside. Disgust is with something inside, from your inside, you confront it from the outside. Oh, okay, now you can tell me, but shit is disgusting. No, but let's take a more neutral example, which I hope will convince you. You have saliva all the time in your mouth. You swallow it now all the time, no problem, nothing disgusting. Do, or rather don't do it, I can't do it, but try to do a certain extremely elementary example. Take a glass, spit in it, kind of a certain strata, half an inch of your saliva, look, and then try to drink it. You cannot. Well, because it's outside, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. So what I want to say is that you cannot imagine how much this tells us about human identity. The point being that at a certain level, precisely at the level of Rumsfeldian unknown knowns, we do not perceive ourselves in this most elementary phenomenological self-experience. We do not perceive ourselves as beings with depth. The depth is spiritual, not bodily. I claim that when I look at you, I somehow abstract the fact that beneath your skin there are pretty horrible things, all the blood, bones, whatever. When I look you into your eyes, head, I behave as if there is some kind of a soul spiritual presence inside, not the stupidity of biological machine or whatever. So this tells us a lot about this most immediate phenomenology of our experience. Again, the way it is embodied in this unknown knowns. Now let me make a step further. the central mystery here is that these beliefs, even if we are aware of them, another way that we deal with them is that we transpose them onto others. There is nothing hypocritical in it, or rather, it's a kind of a sincere hypocrisy. What do I mean by this? My favorite example here is another one which I repeatedly use in my books. Do you know the Tibetan praying mills? Like you write a prayer, you put it into a mill, you turn it around, or even better, you put it on a windmill and it turns around itself. And to put it in a slightly cynical way, it's a wonderful. Like you can think about sex, whatever you want, but objectively you pray. No, it prays for you. Now you will say, haha, this goes for primitive cultures. No, we have exactly same phenomena all around. Think about what, if you ask me, is one of the great contributions of American civilization to world culture, canned laughter on TV. You know, laughter being part of the soundtrack. It's a very mysterious phenomenon. Why does it work? Namely, how does it work? It's not, as many people think, that it's a kind of a Pavlovian reflex machine to signal you when to laugh. No, as a rule, you don't laugh. You return home in the evening, tired as a dog, you put it on, cheers, friends, whatever. You hear the laughter, and you just look at it and, as an idiot, and when it ends, you feel relieved. It is as if you have laughed. And, I mean, it's a paradox. How should I put it? Even the most intimate, spontaneous expression of yourself, like laughter, can be transposed onto others. The same goes also, especially, I claim, for example, for beliefs. What do I mean by this? Did you notice how often in families where parents half believe or stop believing, what happens is that they desperately cling to another one. It can be their parents, old mother, children, who should believe. What really breaks them down is that much more than their disbelief is to discover that this other, whose innocence should be protected, doesn't believe. Even for many, I'm sorry, for many people who participate in sexual orgies and so on. I spoke recently with a sociologist who investigated this and told me how, as a rule, they can be ruthless group orgies, whatever you want, but they always have somebody who should remain innocent, who shouldn't know about it. The moment that happens, their life literally falls apart. This structure, I think, is extremely interesting. How? Let me give you another example from literature. Okay, literature, I only saw the film. Edith Wharton's Age of Innocence. This is the beauty of the story, that, you remember, the affair between Newland and that Count Olenska, or who? No? But the wife, to put it in human terms, Winona Ryder, no? The young wife is supposed to be naive not to know. And then you know what happens at the end. The wife, young wife of the hero, dies. He thinks he's free now legally to rejoin his love of long years mistress. Okay, Michelle Pfeiffer in the film. Then, at this very point, his son tells him that the wife knew it all the time, just pretended not to know. And it's ruined. He cannot do it. You see, he was engaged in this transgressive behavior, whatever, but on condition that another one, of this innocence of another one. So this is the great mystery of how, even if we don't believe, we claim to be cynical and so on, we have this need for another one to remain pure to believe. I know now, enough of jokes, I know a much more serious and tragic version of this. Agnes Heller, probably unknown to almost all of you, is a Hungarian philosopher who was during, now she's a very old lady, during World War II in, I think it was even Auschwitz. I mean, she has all these numbers, the real one, how should I put it. And she told me a very interesting story, how in every barrack in the camp, there were two types of people, basically. There were survivalists, those who were totally bitter but still struggled for survival. And this was some kind of a codified egotism. You were allowed, if the other guy was stupid and left some food there and walked away, you were allowed to steal it. There were some minimal rules, but very hard rules. Then there were so-called Muslims, Musulmanen, the living dead, the ones who simply no longer cared, just as living dead walked around. And then, now comes the tragic point, story she told me. Then there was in every barrack a myth that somewhere out there, usually in a next barrack next, there is somebody who is still fully human. That is to say, somebody who didn't regress to this level of survivalism. You steal, you do that, you just cruelly try to survive, but who behaves even in those terrifying circumstances as if you are in normal life. He helped others, shared food, and so on. And she told me something very interesting, that the most dangerous moment for your psychic integrity was when, as it unfortunately it was the case, you sooner or later discovered that this is a myth, that this other is like most of us. At that point, usually people lose even the will to survive, even this will to struggle, and regressed to what was called Muslim, Musulmanen, that is to say, turned into living dead. So you see the nicety here. Even, to put it in more almost theological terms, even to be consistently evil, you need a presupposed goodness somewhere up there. And I claim, now we shouldn't underestimate this. Now don't go into this orgy, divine spark, we are all deeply good. No, the problem is that the same holds for Hitler, for Stalin, from whoever you want. I have no doubts that they were doing with this innocence in view. That is to say, you can also give to